It's a beautiful deal. It's definitely in our culture at Westmont that people come through this place, have their lives changed, and then make it possible for the next group coming through. So thank you, alumni. Well, we are going to hear from an alum from the class of 98. Shauna Niequist is in the house. She is an alumna of Westmont College, where she studied English and French literature. Welcome home, Shauna. She's married to Aaron. They both live in Chicago. By the way, the Chicago Bears are 3-1. They lead the NFC North right now. They have sons, Henry and Mac, and they're about to go on an adventure to move to New York. Shauna is also a New York Times best-selling author, and I looked at the titles of her books, and they all make me want to eat a good meal. Cold Tangerines, Bittersweet, Bread and Wine, Savor, and Present Over Perfect. Here's a fun fact. She was interviewed by Oprah Winfrey in August of 2017 on Super Soul Sunday. Didn't know that was a thing. Shauna says that she is a bookworm, a beach bum, and a passionate gatherer of people, especially if it's around a table. So let's give a warm homecoming welcome to Shauna Niequist.
Thank you. It is totally an honor for me to be here. I don't do a lot of traveling and speaking right now. As Scott mentioned, we're in the middle of a move from Chicago, which is our hometown, to New York City. And this is one of the only places that could get me out of the chaos of that process, and it's a total pleasure to be with you. I graduated 20 years ago, and Westmont will always be totally sacred ground for me. When I came to Westmont, I was a suspicious, over-churched, cynical pastor's kid waiting for someone to judge me or shame me, and I would have been out the door right away. And instead, God used this extraordinary place to rebuild me from the inside out, to rekindle the faith that I had been given as a child. And when I left Westmont, I brought with me a faith that I had wrestled for, had fought for, and it was in the safety of this place that God was able to do extraordinary work in my life. And so I will drop anything if I can help this place, or if I can tell the story of the good things that God did in my life during the time that I was here. So let's pray together. God, thank you for this place. Thank you for what you did in me here. And thank you for what you have done and are doing in the lives of so many people because of this place. I pray that you would bless it in every way, that you would protect it in every way, and that its good and sacred and special work would continue. In your name we pray, amen. So I am a Midwesterner. I am not a Californian. I think you can hear that in my charming Midwestern accent. When I first came here, I lived in Page, and one of the really fun things my friends would do is when my mom left a voicemail, because back then we had telephones on the walls. Are you familiar with this? Have your parents told you about this? They were on the walls, and your parents could leave you voicemails. And one fun thing that my friends would do when I was here is they would play my mom's voicemails over and over again and laugh at our accent, because my mom would say things like, "Hey, Shauna, it's your mom. I'm calling from the lake, and I want to make sure you got the box I sent you." And they were like, "Is she speaking English?" I was like, "She's speaking normal, like Midwestern." Anne Lamott, who is one of my all-time favorite writers, who actually I fell in love with here at Westmont. She, is a Bay Area writer, but would come down to UCSB quite often, and a whole group of us from the English department would go see her and listen to her, and she's just one of my all-time favorites. But she says that God is her father, and California is her mother. And I think that is so beautiful. But I think I would say that God is my father, and Lake Michigan is my mother, and California is my weird, awesome aunt that I love to stay with because I get to do things that my parents would never let me do. I love California, and it is also utterly unfamiliar and exotic to me all the time. I can't believe you don't have to have a passport to come here. I think it's strange and magical, and I am crazy about it. And so when I was here, how many of you are from non-California? Yes, okay, great. So I think I thought I would maybe fit in a little better than I did right when I got here. I didn't know that my Midwesternness would be quite so obvious, but the accent, was the first thing that gave it away. The second thing that gave it away is when I first got here, my freshman year, I went to the beach every single day because it is here. There is one, and so I went to it every day. And I remember, gently, as the first semester went on, people were like, hey, it's always going to be here. And the sun is always going to be shining. And you don't have to, go every day. It's just always there. And as a Midwesterner, just, we have, 24 months a year of winter. And something happens when the sun shines for the first time in, April, and it's 50 degrees, everybody in the Midwest puts on their shorts and washes their car with their super pasty, glowing, pale legs out because we're so excited to be outside again. And so I never got over that you could just be outside all the time and it would always be beautiful. That never stopped being amazing to me. The other thing that gave me away, apparently as a Midwesterner, is when I went to the beach, as I often did. One of the first times I went to the beach with one of my best friends, she said, are you on a swim team? And I said, no, that's weird. What a weird question to ask. And then she said, are you a lifeguard? And I said, no, can you swim? What's happening? And she said, no, I've just never seen anyone wear a one-piece swimsuit before that wasn't on a swim team or wasn't a lifeguard. And I was like, well, apparently you've never been to the Midwest, which is that's what we do there. We one-piece swimsuits, So I had blown her mind. The other thing, I'm really, I love 99.9% of California. This is the one tiny thing that maybe this is just an opportunity for growth. Frequently people would say things to me like, oh, you're from Chicago. Are you going back to the East Coast for Christmas? And I would say, may I supply you with a map? Because you just overshot that by 1,000 miles. Or they would say, I know you're from Chicago. Do you know Kendall? And I'd be like, yeah, Kendall's from Denver. Again, 1,000 miles, which is fine, except that. What happens if I were to say, well, Santa Barbara, it's in Southern California. Oh, no. It's Central California, and let me show you the dividing line, but it's the bottom half, right? It's not a crazy thing to say. Or for example, if I were to say yeah, I think I was, I'm not sure exactly where it was. I think I was in LA, and then I tell them the name of the town, and they say, you were in the Inland Empire. And I'm they're right next to each other. And so what I would like to just present to you is maybe you could apply your extremely specific love for your own geography and figure out how far Boston and Chicago and Denver really are from each other. So what I want to talk with you about, I want to tell you the 3 greatest things that Westmont gave me, besides sort of a snobby sense of my, sense of geography in the Midwest. I think maybe we got really good at that. So I want to tell you 3 things, and the reason I'm going to tell you is because I think we are all more alike than we are different, and I think a lot of the things that are difficult for us are difficult for all of us, and a lot of the things that are significant in all our lives are pretty similar. Eugene Peterson says that stories are verbal acts of hospitality. I love that. Hospitality and storytelling are two of my greatest passions, and to hear someone put those together feels really significant to me. A songwriter named Tyler James says, "My story has never been a story about me," and I believe that. I believe that my story is a story about God. It's a story about redemption. It's a story about what God can do in a human heart, and so is your story, and so is your story, and so is your story. And the gift we give each other when we tell our stories is we make space and possibility for the things that we all are longing for, right? If he could rebuild your heart, maybe he could rebuild mine. If redemption could come to this broken part of your life, maybe it could come to mine. So I think storytelling is sort of a sacred gift that we offer each other. And so I want to kind of tell you about three things, the three things that Westmont gave me, and then I want to invite you, kind of three invitations that I want to offer to you because of those things. So the first thing that Westmont gave me that I'm so incredibly thankful for were friends, not just for the time I spent here, but friends for the entire journey of my life since then. And I don't know if I knew at the time that what I was doing was building lifelong friends, but I was. And I just want to encourage you to invest yourself as absolutely deeply as you can in the relationships here. With students, with mentors, with professors. Some of the professors that I studied with became mentors and guides through some of the most difficult passages of my life, and I'm so thankful for that. Later today, I'll go up and see my French professor, who created such an extraordinary experience for me as I studied French literature with her, and I'm so thankful that she's still a part of my life. When I first started at Westmont, so I went on Inoculum, which was amazing, and it's like a camping thing. I was not really a camping person, but I really liked it. And then I came back to campus, and I liked the camping part, but I was very, very dirty. Very dirty. And I was moving into Page, and it was before everyone else came to campus, mostly. There were not very many people here, and a girl tried to come into my room, and like a real friend maker, I said, no, don't come in here. I smell so bad. And she was like, what a weirdo. But that person is Monica, who was the first person I met here on this campus and is one of my most treasured friends to this day. And she's one of the most competent people I know. I feel like Monica's a person where I could call her and be like, can you do stitches? Can you change a tire? Where should I get dinner in Hong Kong? And she would have an answer for all of those immediately. And I love that about her. Monica and another friend, Kirsten. Kirsten and I met on England semester. So if you've been on England semester or Europe semester, you know that 99% of that experience takes place on a bus. They don't tell you that. You see a lot of amazing things, but it's a lot of time on a bus. And I met Kirsten on a bus, and she has been just a totally, she's like the cool older sister that I never had, and I look up to her and I learn from her, and I'm so thankful for her. So Monica and Kirsten and I was doing a speaking thing in the Bay Area, so I was introducing my college friends to the rest of the speakers who are dear friends of mine, and so one of them said, how do you guys know each other? One of them, Monica said, we went to college together. And Angela said, so you're lifelong friends. And Monica said, not just lifelong, lifeline. And that's true. The women, especially that God brought into my life during my time at Westmont, have become lifelines for me, even now, 20 years later. Annette and her now husband, Andrew, and I all met the first week. We all lived in Page together. And since that time, in the intervening years, we have stood in each other's weddings. We have held each other's babies just after they were born. They lived in our house for 2 months. We lived 2 blocks apart. We've been all over the country and all over the world together. And Annette is one of the first phone calls that I make when anything good or bad happens in my life. And God has used Annette and Andrew to teach me so much about friendship and about marriage. They were people who got married relatively young, and so we did this thing where all through college, I would double date with them, and they were together with each other the whole time, and I was dating a revolving door of really strange people. So they had the extreme pleasure of double dating with me and like a real cast of characters. And it's so great to have people in your life that can remind you about that like 20 years later. It's a real gift. And so the first invitation I want to offer you is invest yourself as deeply as possible in the relationships that you find yourself in right now, in the friendships, in the mentoring relationships with professors, with faculty, with staff. These, you may not be able to see it now, but these might be the people who walk you through some of the most difficult and dark passages of your life, and the investment you're making now will never be wasted. And I usually try not to give advice that I know specifically people are not going to take, but I'm just gonna do one. I know you're not gonna do this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Please consider that your roommates and your closest friends might be a part of your life even longer than the person you are like mad texting / maybe dating. And your time might be better spent investing in those friendships than in this like sort of weird texting dating relationship. Okay, I know you're not gonna really do that, but the roommates that you're completely ignoring right now, for the sake of this like kind of weird dating thing, give yourself to those friendships and you won't regret it. There are some people for whom the way their life is supposed to go is they're supposed to find their person in college, right? That happens for some people. And that's very, very good for them. That's right for them. One of God's greatest acts of grace in my life is that I did not marry anyone I dated in college. So the second invitation. Westmont gave me a vision for my vocation. Someone just asked me this morning, what made you decide to be a writer? And I said, Westmont. Westmont taught me what books can do, what language can do, what storytelling can do. And I was not a writing student. I took exactly one writing class while I was here. I took modern grammar and advanced comp. But what I did, I was a literature major, English literature, and then a French literature minor. And so all I did was read. Other people had like labs and projects, and all I did was read. And I loved it. And it gave me a vision for the thing I wanted to do more than anything else in the world. When I left Westmont, I had within me a deep desire to be a part of that conversation. I knew that words were going to be my greatest tools, and I knew that I would do anything. God used books in my life in such extraordinary ways, and I so badly wanted to possibly someday have that kind of effect in another person's life. But one thing I will say, it took me 10 years between Westmont and becoming a full-time writer, and those 10 years were about fear and practicality. When I left Westmont, I knew that I wanted to be a writer, but then I got scared and I got practical. And if I can encourage you to hold the fear and the sort of obsessive focus on practicality at bay as long as you can, pay attention to your deep passions. Pay attention to what you love. Pay attention to what makes you come alive. Those are clues to your vocation. And there are so many ways to live that out, and you'll figure out the practical side of it. But pay attention now to the seeds of your vocation that are being watered and coming to life right now. I'm so thankful for what Westmont gave me in terms of a vision for the work I hope to do for the whole of my life. And then the third invitation, and definitely the most important one, Westmont gave me the skills and the space and the bravery to work out my own salvation, to walk my own difficult, messy, circuitous spiritual journey. There's a verse in Philippians that says, in Philippians 2, it's an invitation to work out our salvation with fear and trembling. And I love that phrase because there's action to it. You're working it out, right? It's not done. You don't figure it out all at once. You don't finish it. You work it out on an ongoing basis. And there's fear and trembling because it's hard. Because it's difficult to say, I have real serious doubts. It's difficult to say, I have questions about my faith that I'm scared to say out loud. But I want to tell you that this was a place that I was able to do that, and I believe it saved my faith and it saved my life. And I cannot encourage you enough. If you sense inside of you that it's time for you to go on a more honest, maybe more difficult spiritual journey, leaving behind the answers that you were given maybe growing up, leaving behind the things that your parents told you your faith had to look like, this is a place where you can walk into the wilderness and find your way home. And I know that because it's what God did in my life when I was here. I know a lot of times we think about before and after. And we think about faith being I did not believe and then I did. And we talk about being born again. And I absolutely believe that there is a crucial moment of initial conversion, but I also believe in being born again and again and again, in the continual process of conversion, that we become more and more deeply devoted, more and more deeply honest, more and more deeply brave, more and more completely transformed. And I think this is an extraordinary place for you to take those next several steps. I think it's easy to choose a pretty clean and sanitized version of faith on a really wonderful Christian campus like this, right? Like, I'm going to show you that I've kind of checked all the boxes and I've got the spiritual thing sort of nailed for now. If that's authentically true for you, God bless you, and I love that for you. But if underneath that, there are questions you're afraid to ask, there are doubts you're afraid to bring out to the light, there are wounds that you have not allowed to heal in meaningful ways, this is the time and this is the place to do it. And part of the reason it's so important that you do it now is because the bad news is I think you're going to have to do it over and over and over. If you learn the skills now to dismantle and rebuild your faith, to let it transform, to leave behind some practices that no longer serve you and learn some new ones, to ask hard questions, this is the work of spiritual maturity. Conversion upon conversion upon conversion. So I was a 17-year-old pastor's kid who had a lot of doubt and suspicion, and I was ready to make a little trouble, and I did. I think a lot of times the people that you hear, like the alumni that come back, they come back to speak to you all because when they were here, they were stars, right? And they come back and they tell you about like the great things they did while they were here and all the things that they gave to this campus and this community, and then the great things they've done since then. And I have to tell you, and anyone who was there at the time will completely agree, I was not a star when I was here. I was the opposite of a star, which is like I believe that the opposite of a star is a black hole. Fun fact about me, I did okay, like in my classes, and I liked them. The one class I got a failing notice in was astronomy. So I'm not sure if it was a black hole or not. But some of the irony of me being here, certainly, when my good friends, and when I speak at any college campus, at any chapel, my friends are like, oh, really, you're speaking in a college chapel? Hilarious. Were you aware that Westmont College had a chapel program? Did you know that when you were there? Did you know where it was located? Because we didn't run into each other there very often. I did not bring much to the Westmont campus. I needed a lot. I got in trouble a lot. I made a lot of mistakes. I have a lot of regrets. And yet, I was treated with so much love and grace. I was given second chances and 12th chances and 37th chances. I was shown dignity that I didn't deserve. I was given a safe and respected place to just be a disaster. And I'm so deeply thankful for that. So when I talk to my friends who graduated, they talk about things like potter's clay, right? I did not go to that. I went to Mexico and did other things. Spring Sing, I've heard of this. I did not go to that. I didn't live on campus really at all. I wasn't a part of the incredible, vibrant, spiritually growing and supportive community. I was like doing other weird stuff, and still. My professors and my RDs and my friends made this a profoundly safe space for me to make a lot of mistakes. And then, my senior year of college, I started to feel inside of myself a turning in my heart, largely because I couldn't ignore what I saw in the people here. I couldn't ignore the goodness and the grace, and I knew that I wanted it even though I was trying so hard to not want it. And so I was not at a place in my life then when I wanted to go to a church. But I knew that I sensed God's presence most when I watched the sun set on the water. And so I started attending the sunset at Butterfly Beach the way some people attend church services. And I showed up and I listened and I opened my heart and I prayed. And God met me in that place and rebuilt things, but it never would have happened without this community. And so I want to invite you, continue to have a truly brave, sometimes awkward, deeply honest spiritual journey, because this is what I know about life. There will be a time in your life when you need your faith to sustain you, to even make it through the day. Maybe some of you are in that place right now. You will need the grounding of your faith as an anchor in a terrible storm. And if all you have are the answers you were given as a child, never tested, never wrestled with, if you shut those doubts up tight in a box and said you deal with it later, you will not have the durable, grounding, sustaining faith that you need for the most difficult passages of your life. When you think about being here for homecoming, what does it mean to come home to this place? For most of us, it's just a temporary home for 4 years. So it is home and it isn't. And we come back to connect. We have other homes. I'm certainly in a season where maybe I'm like overthinking the concept of home because we're getting ready to move. So I'm from Chicago, my family's there, my cousins are there, my high school friends are there, and we're getting ready to move to New York City where I know like 6 people. And it feels really scary, and so I've been thinking about what does it mean to feel a sense of home? How will I ever feel home somewhere that's not my home? And so that's been on my mind and on my heart this fall. And I read a collection of Henry Nouwen's letters. It's called Dear Henry, and it's wonderful. I was staying at a little farm outside Tennessee, and it was a time to kind of reflect and pray, and I was reading this collection of his letters, and there was a woman who sent him a letter, and she said, I'm new in my new town, and I don't feel settled. How will I start to feel settled in my new town? And his response to her was, that's not the kind of settling that will ever give you a real sense of home. My prayer for you is that you will settle more and more deeply into the very heart of Jesus, and that will be your home. And so that's my prayer for each one of us here today. Wherever you are on your journey, in the bleakest, most lonely places, or in the most lovely, life-giving places, whether you're just about to walk away from it all, or you're walking in a beautiful, contagious, consistent way toward the person of Christ and the way he invites us to live, wherever you are, whether it's been the worst year of your life or the best, whether you feel like it's darkness all the time or your life is bubbling over with joy, wherever you find yourself, this is what I know, and this is what I will pray for you, that you will always find your home as you settle deeply and more deeply and more deeply into the very heart of Jesus. Amen.